Thank you all for joining us today in our second masterclass of the series. Last week we spoke to Phil, who went through our smart home tariffs, and this week we've got our Zero Bills Homes team. So we've got Hannah here. Hannah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Hannah. So I head up Zero Bills, kind of the business development side for Octopus. So everything from talking to developers, so house builders, local authorities, housing associations, all the way through to customers moving in. So a nice end-to-end point of contact for people.
Cool. And we got Will.
Hi everyone, I'm Will. I'm product technical lead at Zero Bills. I basically everything that on a technical level that makes Zero Bills Home, I work with, and I build all of our tooling to figure out end to end what that looks like.
Will does a lot of the clever stuff in the background.
Fantastic, cool. So we're going to kick off with Hannah, who's going to run us through what Zero Bills Homes are and give us a complete rundown. And then we'll switch over to a Q&A. We've got the chat running. We've also got the Q&A box, so feel free to pop everything in there and we'll keep monitoring that. And for now, I'll pass you over to Hannah.
Fab, thank you. I'm just waiting for some slides to pop up, so just to bring things to life a bit more for you all. But thank you all for kind of joining in to hear more about Zero Bills. So just a kind of a bit of a hello from the team. So you've got myself and Will, we've already introduced ourselves, but amongst the Zero Bill team, we are a fairly lean team for some people delivering kind of something within a huge industry and a very historic industry of house building. So we've got a few business development people within the team. We've got Nigel, who is online as well, technical director, and we've got a low carbon homes director, Emma Fletcher, and then people who are helping support the customers, looking at operation and product technical delivery. So just a little bit about Octopus, I guess, for those who want to know a bit more. So obviously we are a tariff provider, so we have all our smart tariffs. We also deliver our own cozy heat pump now and our electric vehicle charger, OctoCharge. But we're always looking at ways that we can bring more to customers. So looking at Electroverse, an app where you kind of get rid of range anxiety, I can say firsthand, look at where you're starting from, where you want to get to, how much mileage you need, and the best place to charge along the way. Through to saving sessions. So again, just trying to give back to customers who are joining us through the energy revolution, all the way through to actually Nero free coffees. I always struggle to get one. They go so quickly.
You got to have quick fingers.
It is a good morning when you get that. And then even things like the shop, so Octo Shop. So if you want a plushie, like you can see in front, you can buy one. We've even got like a rucksack, which is very cute, and a dog toy, which my Dalmatian absolutely loves. So I can definitely vouch. Great Christmas present if you need one. And then we have our Octopus service team. So people who are actually delivering heat pumps, solar battery to end customers wanting this in their homes. We have our Slough R&D centre where we've got homes built to different areas where engineers can be trained there, but also we can test products. So testing the heat pumps in weather chambers and things like that, and really allowing us to experiment and push the boundaries of what's next and what's coming. We have salary sacrifice, so for businesses, so really driving the EV revolution. And then something that as a business, but specifically the Zero Bills team we are looking to influence policy. So we've been to a lot of events in the last couple of months. There is a future home standard coming out, well, we hope soon, but government has been saying that for a long time. But looking at the standard that new homes will need to be built to, and that is a massive part of Zero Bills, showcasing what is possible now for homes to be built to. So we go to a lot of events, we build plushy pyramids where we can and houses on site to get people really excited for what we're doing. We have tariffs for business and also generation, so looking at onshore, offshore wind, fan clubs, helping people benefit from this infrastructure in their local community.
Awesome. Just before we move on, can I check that the audio and sound is all good for everyone? If you could just pop in the chat, that would be amazing. Okay, cool. We're all
great,
good.
so I don't
Let's
have to just go through that all again. So just a bit of a background then on how the tariffs work, which is kind of a bit around really what makes Zero Bills work. So electricity prices vary a lot throughout the month, the day, and this is a great example from October, so you can even see where the storms are, where actually electricity prices can go negative. And that's where saving sessions come in and allow us to give back to customers and give the benefit of these low prices to customers through EV charging overnight and things like that. But all of this is what encompasses and allows us to make Zero Bills work. So what is zero bills? It really is what it says on the tin. So it is a zero bill guaranteed all year round for at least a decade, and that is in the new build space. So there are 2 caveats to the tariff. The first is that EV charging is billed separately, so it's a zero bill for the home. EV is just billed at Intelligent Octopus Go. And then there is a fair usage policy, so it's not free unlimited energy, but it works out roughly double the average consumption. So sort of a hot tub all year round might be something that gets someone near, but to date we haven't had that. So people don't want to overheat in these homes. If you think about it, you don't want to be walking around boiling with your thermostat at 30 degrees. So what we find is people just, I definitely don't. People just want to live a comfortable life and not have the worry of the energy bill, and I think that's a massive part of it. So what you need for a zero bill home currently is a new build, and we work with developers in advance of building these homes to get them with the right configuration of a battery, a heat pump, and a lot of solar panels, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But essentially we have software integrations with the battery and in a lot of cases the heat pump that allow us to run the home in the most efficient and economic way, guaranteeing that zero bill. So we're looking at weather forecasts, the electricity prices, customer demands of that property to run it in the best way. Now, customers, obviously, what they want from that home, they get. It's only the excess energy that we're utilising to optimise, for example, the export of the battery, but customer, obviously, first and foremost. Where we're building, so since this launched a few years ago, we've accredited over 1,200 homes. We have an ambition of 100,000 by 2030, and this isn't just in the UK, so we are building all across the UK, but we are also now in New Zealand, Germany, and as of a few weeks ago, France, and we are growing further. We have over 100 people in these homes now, which is fantastic, and I've got some great customer examples further on as well. But we are assessing a lot of homes, so 5,000 plus. We assess every home individually, so hopefully that brings to life now that it is quite a small team for the amount that we are delivering, but we try and do it in the most efficient way. And we are not stopping in those 4 countries, so we are going further, we are going international, so Italy, Japan, US are on our list to expand to next year, with Spain following. So what do these homes actually look like? So there is a lot of solar, which hopefully is great for you to see, and you're happy with that. We have developers still building with fake chimneys, as you can see in the middle, which means you can't get an extra solar panel on. I hate fake chimneys, and actually a little story. I bought a new build about 4 years ago, and only 2 years ago, when I joined Octopus and started really not liking all these fake chimneys, did I realise I have one. I didn't even know for 2 years I had this fake chimney.
How did you find that out?
I just looked up one day and I was like, oh my God, I've got one. So that was a sad moment for me, realizing that I had one of the problems. But we can do whole sites of zero bills. So in the top left corner is a site with Hill Group, and that is 89 plots in Essex. And there's also social plots there as well. So with Clarion Housing Association, that's live now and they're selling. We've done half the site with Thacum, so they did half zero bills and half net zero. We did a few plots with Bellway. Urban and Civic are a single family housing provider, so they buy homes that are built to be rented out, but as homes rather than big apartment blocks. And then Platform, there is a housing association that did a site of affordable homes. So there's a lot of different ways we can do this, but what you will see is that the roofs are typically quite simple, so we do need a lot of solar, and that's on both elevations. So it is a lot of solar. We are pushing the boundaries, and it does mean, so a simple roof like the ones in the middle where you've kind of got a gable. So if it's like that, it doesn't matter an orientation. Sort of north generates around 25%, south 75% over the course of a year, and then east-west is around 50-50. When you've got something with a bit more complexity, you want the simplest side facing south, just to maximise that generation. But we try and be as flexible as possible with where we're delivering and how much, because ultimately we want as many zero bills as possible as long as they fit in our model. So just to give you a bit more of a close-up view of what these homes kind of are capable of. So the house, actually, the solar goes into the gutter. So there's no tile there. It's straight into the gutter and up to the ridge. And we're even working with industry to go to the verge as well. So we really want developers to not really be building with tiles. We want them to be building with solar panels. When you're building new, why not, essentially? And then a battery as well. So quite often you might start seeing them outside a bit more. New builds kind of have guidance around that, and garages and outside are advised. And then there's a few manufacturers that we work with kind of majority. Some are becoming more popular than others, like the Tesla, because it doesn't need a canopy structure over the top. So it just means it's kind of one less degree of complexity for a developer. So in terms of the nitty gritty, what makes a zero bills home? So the simpler the roof, the better. 1 to 2 story. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on multi-story yet. It's something we would love to get to eventually, but it is rather challenging to do. We need a lot of solar, and so we need roof space. We have preferred heat pump manufacturers, so Valent, Daikin, Panasonic, and our own Cozy, and that's because we have a software integration so we can run them more efficiently. But we have to have certain battery and EV charger manufacturers, so they're the ones listed. So Give Energy, SolarEdge, Enphase, Tesla, and Alpha. There are more coming, so we are constantly looking at trying to onboard more and more, which Will plays a big part in. So yes, it's something that's ever evolving, and the same with EV chargers. And then there's a few no-nos, so no gas. The amount of times I will speak to developers about this and they still ask, can I put a gas hob in? No, we don't want gas. So we need all electric properties, mostly from air source heat pump. Occasionally we'll look at ground source as well. No solar diversion, individual on off control, so off control only for the heat pump. And then no direct electric heatings or instantaneous showers or anything like that. You can still have a tail radiator in the bathroom. It just needs to come from the air source heat pump. Needs to be some form of internet connection, whether that's fibre or a dongle, which we can provide. And then to go from these conversations that I have with the developers, so literally this is the kind of conversation I'll have, and we take their SAP calculations, which is looking at the predicted heat pump consumption and hot water consumption of the property that they have to fill out when they're building homes. And that goes into Will's fancy model, which I'm sure he can tell you more about in a bit, that tells us the minimum amount of kilowatt hours per year that that individual property has to generate to be eligible for zero bills. So it really is every single property is individually assessed. If they can do that, we work with them to confirm what specifications, so what heat pump they've chosen, for example, and we sign a contract with them so that they are delivering and committing to deliver that zero bill home. And off the back of that, the person moving into that property gets that zero bill tariff and is eligible. So it's the person, the resident, who gets that tariff. So if in the build to rent market, for example, it is the tenant or the homeowner, and it is the property that gets that guarantee. So if someone sells in year 5, for example, they can sell that property with a 5-year guarantee as well. And it's really important to note that as much as there's a guarantee on this, it is very much our ambition that this will continue after that 10-year period as well. Okay, so really bringing it all together, like how does it work and how does it come about? It's taking all of our experience from Intelligent Octopus Go, Intelligent Flux and Cozy Tariff and bringing it all together to give a zero bill home. It's really just bringing them together and all of the learnings and the technology that we've developed in order to give this to customers. It is real now. It's not a pipe dream that customers are going to be able to get a zero bill in the future. If they're built in this way, we really can offer this zero bill to customers. Cost often comes up, right? So how much does this kit all cost? And it's important to note that 15 years ago, this was totally unviable for a developer to deliver. It would have cost, like the net cost of kit, even at scale, would have been over £40,000. That's just not viable in this market to deliver. We're now at a point where it's sub 7, and even we're getting to the point of sub £5,000 in net cost at bulk buying, and that's not predicted to stop. It's predicted to continue falling, and it gets to a point where it's a complete no-brainer for developers to do this. Why wouldn't you build a home that customers are going to want more when they can? And it's even to the point, my manager, Nigel Banks, is on the call, loves this one, that, and I do too, to be fair, but it's now at the point where, so we need a 13.5 kilowatt battery in the home. The BYD car has a 30 kilowatt battery and it currently sells for £5,700. You're basically buying a big battery and getting a car wrapped around it for free. And that's going to be, that's something that we're going to see continuing. So the cost of kit is going to continue to drop. So just looking next at what does this really mean for the person living in that property, right? So EPC is something that we are all quite familiar with, and it's quite an industry term at looking at sustainable housing and actually what that can mean for a bill. But the reality is the difference between EPC C and A is not that different. Even, if you take EPC E, again, it is a big saving, but it's not huge. If you look at a zero bill, you're taking that entirely away. So it is a massive saving, and we're trying to work with industry at the moment to kind of maybe change how EPC is reflected. These are some of the developers and partners that we work with, so from big PLCs all the way down to SMEs building sort of even a few homes a year. We really want to work with as many people as possible to deliver these homes. Housing associations, build-to-rent providers, local authorities. We're really open to working with many as people as possible because we want to make zero bills a reality for as many people as possible. We're not just working on individual properties as well. So we have a pilot scheme with GS8 in Epping. It's a very cool scheme, I have to say, because it's very focused on community. They have a sort of a woodland nearby as well. They're going to have a cafe on site, and they've really focused on that. And one of the things is also zero bill. So it's a communal battery instead of a battery in each individual home, and then solar, in this case, on each individual property's roof. But in theory, you could have a solar farm nearby as well. And I'm sure Will can answer some more questions if anyone's got any on that after this presentation. But it is 113 homes, and it is a kind of a showcase for what we can do with communal batteries. And one thing that was really exciting for us this year was Savills actually spotlighted zero bills, so it is becoming an industry standard. So we've launched it as a global standard now, but Savills have actually recognised it and are promoting it as a standard. So which one are they going to go with as a builder or a single family housing provider? Future Home Standard, which still isn't out. Octopus Zero Bills, which goes beyond future standard but actually gives maximum benefit to the person living in that property, or Passive House, which is great insulation and things like that. But it's just a real rewarding thing for us that we are actually being recognised as part of industry now. And for customers, I mean, I know it feels a bit obvious of what the benefit is. You know, you get a zero bill, but it is that peace of mind, protected from rising energy costs as well. So that is a guarantee for 10 years. You don't have to worry about rising energy bills for the next 10 years. Quality of life, so your improved life, but also mental health outcomes. So you're not having as much damp and mold and things like that. If you can have your heating on a bit more, maybe use your tumble dryer more often. So it's a massive thing having a warm home. Best in class service. You've probably all heard the radio advert, so which recommended supplier 8 years running. And so that's obviously part of zero bills as well. And it's really user friendly. So people living in these properties don't need to worry about the technology. We take care of that all in the background. They just set their thermostat, live their life as normal, and we take care of the rest. I had a really privileged experience recently to go visit one of our social tenants, so someone living in Clarion Housing Association social rent property, and I met the lady who's on the left from Essex, and it was I felt very privileged to actually hear her story, and that zero bills has really helped her in life. So she had debt with her old energy provider, and living in this zero bill home has now meant that she can get out of that debt, so she's working to repay them. And she can still, you know, have the heating on now and not have to worry. So it was a real great experience to be able to meet her. But we also have customers in private who are just, you know, taking away the stress, you know, especially families when they've got little ones and want to have the heating on a bit more, or things like that. You know, a few extra £100 in the bank each month is a massive thing for people. So it's been great hearing customer testimonies as we've got more and more over the years. And actually, some people think that zero bills might just be for, you know, millennials and people more interested in renewable technology, but actually we've seen a massive interest from downsizers. You know, you get rid of your mortgage, you get rid of your energy bills, and it's been great seeing how they've embraced that technology and got over that kind of you know, stigma of, you know, downsizers aren't going to like the technology. Actually, that's not true, and keeping it really simple is just an extra, you know, the icing on the cake, as it were. We work across industry as well, so we have a mortgage available for zero bills with a company called Perenna, and we are working with high street lenders as well now to try and unlock more in that space to make it more accessible. And one thing also that has been a great achievement that is launched literally only last week or the week before is that our sister company, Octopus Capital, who own a housing association called New Arch, have a new £100 million fund that has come through to help deliver zero bill homes. And particularly in the the affordable housing sector, zero bills is the most challenging because you do need some money to help fund the upfront cost of the battery and a bit more solar. And this really unlocks an opportunity for us to deliver even more affordable homes for those that need them most. So it's not just new build. So we have got some retrofit trials, which
there were loads of questions in the chat.
we thought there might be. It's a really exciting space, and obviously new build is a really small proportion of the housing market in the UK. So we are getting there. We are working through the trials. So it's not open yet to everyone, but we do have a form that we can send out either through an email or something, that if you are interested and you think you might be eligible given what we've spoken about and the kit requirements and the amount of solar, if we open it up further, then you'd be the first to know. So definitely, if you're interested, let us know on that. But we have done a 2-week-old property, which feels a bit cheeky to say sort of retrofit, so we'll say it's an upgrade. And that was a developer that unfortunately didn't want to change their build plan. They didn't want to put a heat pump in. They put a gas boiler in. And the purchaser of that property, Lloyd's Living, really wanted to give zero bills to their tenants. So they decided to get us to go in, take out that gas boiler, which was reused, put a heat pump in, put solar on the roof and a battery, and that became a zero bill home within sort of 2 weeks, which was great. We've had 70-year-old properties that we've done, so we've done 10 of them with Clarion Housing Association, and even a 130-year-old mid-terrace Victorian property, which we were all very excited about that we could get to zero bills, and actually it just needed loft insulation and the windows and doors upgrading. So it wasn't mass deep dive retrofit that it needed. Obviously being mid-terrace does help with that considerably, but it is a really exciting kind of showcase of what is possible and what we hope continues we learn more about and make it more possible for more and more people. Now the retrofit one is a 5-year guarantee, but we very much again expect that and anticipate that continues after that point.
You know the form you were talking about, is that on the website?
It's not on the website. If you drop us an email at zerobills@octoenergy.com, then we can send you that link. Whether we can put that in the chat, the email address, that would be really helpful if we can.
Yeah, I think Cerny might be on it. Could you say it again, sorry, the email?
Yep, it's zerobills@octoenergy.com.
Cool. We'll definitely send that out afterwards as well.
And then, so just kind of before we wrap up and get to Q&A, which I'm sure is going to be very popular, but it's very important to government stats and actually even mortgage advisor stats on what renewable technology can give you is sometimes a little bit too conservative. They take the kind of safest case. And I had that experience recently where my mortgage provider, they have like a cashback scheme, which a lot do, so definitely look into that. And they were saying sort of like solar and battery would cost, I don't know, I think it said £7,000, but it was only going to give me £100 back a year. And a heat pump was pretty much the same, but the return was even less per year. And those figures just don't really stack up for people, you know, and that makes sense. Whereas they're not taking into account the benefit that smart tariffs have and the considerable savings that then unlocks. So solar and battery, actually with smart tariffs, you're looking at around like £800 a year, not the £100 that government say, and heat pumps 360, EVs even more. And we get that they have to be, you know, conservative and not give wrong information, but it's great that we can then communicate to you all that actually go have that look at what tariffs can save. And sometimes doing renewable technology will therefore work out a better decision financially than doing some deep dive retrofit like insulation and stuff. You know, we're all for improving thermal of homes, but if you want to make the decision based on return on investment, sometimes solar and battery and things like that are better. And we have got people coming on in the new year, I believe, to talk more about heat pumps and EV chargers. So if you're interested in that, definitely keep an eye out for links and comms that will be going out. And hopefully that wasn't death by slides, but that is over. So we can open up to Q&A and hopefully have a lot come through, which will also be able to help me with.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked about the recording being available and the slide deck. So I'll get that off you and I'll definitely send those out. And it is being recorded, so we'll make sure to share that afterwards as well. I've got my phone here with all the Q&A questions. Are you guys ready?
Thrilled.
I can just defer to Will. So.
Yeah. So first one is coming from Alan. And he says, so is vehicle to home excluded from zero bills homes, i.e. using your car as a battery?
I can take it, but do you want to?
So it's not currently part of the mix. It's definitely something that we would consider, but at the moment we're very much separating vehicle charging from zero bills.
No, that's great.
Yep.
Cool. Philip says, can you do anything for homeowners who live in flats that cannot have solar panels or heat pumps?
I mean, flats are the kind of trickiest market, as it were. I know there's new technology coming through, like I keep seeing it, I think from IKEA even, that there's like solar panels that might be on fencing and things like that are coming. So it's quite exciting, I think, what is going to come. And looking at things like communal batteries, we've had actually a couple of interested providers recently who are interested in just understanding how a communal battery in like the plant room might be able to reduce even the communal bills. Right. So that's something that could be considered. Yeah,
I think it's sort of something that's not on our current roadmap, but we're aware could be something for the future. So our private wire network, our microgrid in Epping, is a large communal battery. We essentially add all of the solar up across the site to create generation, and then we optimize the site. And I think that's the way that you could make flats work. And there are also heat pumps that are now working in flats as well. So it's not something that is like on the immediate horizon, but it's something that could be. And it's definitely super interesting.
Cool. This is a question from Ben who emailed me before, but he said, I'm at the point nearly of being on a zero bills home. Will there be any options available for those of us who aim for the same ethos as you guys do, but not linked to a home builder?
So I guess in that respect, hopefully our retrofit program does expand, and then yes, that would be a great kind of, you'd be next in line, as it were, and eligible. At the moment, the zero bill is focused on new build, but also if you're getting there anyway, that's a really great accomplishment from you. And then it's looking at, I guess, if you can optimize any of that further, so maybe adding batteries and things like that. Anything you want to add?
No, I mean, it's really interesting. We have people email us all the time, and they're like, I'm actually already achieving a zero bill, but like, I'd love to have it guaranteed. And I'm sort of like, but why? You're doing so wonderful as you are. But it is definitely something that people appreciate, the peace of mind. But yeah, you can definitely make that sort of zero bills mix with our existing tariffs.
I've seen a lot of questions on the chat as well about the standing charges. So how does that work with having a zero bills home?
So there's no standing charges as well. So it really is zero, bar the car if you've got one, or if you go over the fair use. So yeah, no standing charges either.
Nice. Russell says, does zero bills only apply to new build houses, or can it apply to older ones? So I guess we spoke about the retrofit on that. Simon, if a new build is not built as zero bills home, is it possible to retrofit? Got that one. James, do you spec your zero bills along the same lines as passive house? Don't know if I've said that correctly.
Right.
Or other low energy home standards? What are the additional build costs versus a normal home?
Yeah, so the in terms of passive house, we don't need passive house. We kind of work to part L and onwards. Passive house can help, but it doesn't help as much as people think. We often get passive house developers inquiring and thinking, you know, they may be able to get away with just one side of the roof or something like that. And the reason being is that if you take your energy bill over the course of the year, roughly it breaks down into almost 5 parts. 1 part is heating, 1 part is hot water, and 3/5 is your unregulated use, so like your kettle, your TV, your Xbox, etc. And so passive house really has a big impact on 1/5, which is why it doesn't have as much an impact as people might think. But it can help, so it will reduce the amount of panels required by a few. I think we've seen like up to 6 before, maybe around that. So it definitely can help, but it's not a requirement. What was the other part of the question?
What are the additional bill costs versus a normal home?
Did you want to add anything on passive house before?
Well, no, actually, the investment required to make a zero bills home is often less than what's required to, make all of those fabric improvements to get to passive house. So, which is why we think it's potentially more powerful.
Yeah, and then in terms of the build cost, so those net figures that were on the screen earlier are a good starting point in terms of the net cost of the material, and then developers will use their own installers, etc. So it does vary a lot in terms of the build cost and who's building and the scale.
Derek says, who covers the maintenance costs for like solar, battery performance levels, cleaning of solar panels, things like that?
Yeah, so whoever owns the property is, I guess, responsible for the equipment. They own all the equipment as well, so there's no leasing or anything like that with Zero Bills. We don't have any specific maintenance requirements for the Zero Bill tariff. The equipment just needs to be operationally functional. So when a customer signs up to the Zero Bill tariff, just like you'd sign up to a normal tariff, there's some T's and C's about that, just like the kit needs to be working, so you can't turn the battery off, example, and still get zero bills. But in terms of maintenance, then yeah, it's up to whoever owns the property if they want to, maintain them in the respect of their warranty provider, etc. But we don't get involved in that.
Cool. Ashley says, do the houses have to meet airtightness requirements? Is an MHRV required?
No, it's not. It's really like Part L onwards is kind of what we say in terms of the build. Things like wastewater heat recovery can help, but again, they're not required. Anything that helps improve the property will help, but it's not required.
Sue says, I'm told that heat pumps really are not as efficient in older properties and are much more expensive to fit. Is this still the case?
Do you want to take this one?
Not particularly. So there are certain requirements that are more challenging in older properties. So sometimes you need to go in and you need to retrofit all of the radiators. That's not necessarily the case all the time these days. So the Cozy specifically is what we'd call a high temp heat pump. So it can run at high flow temperatures. So pretty similar to a gas boiler. And a lot of the things that make heat pumps maybe behave less efficiently are more to do with how they're run. So you can't getting instantaneous heating with a heat pump will reduce the efficiency. Whereas if you gently let your home heat up and you store it in your water tank, then they can achieve 270, 300, 330% efficiencies. So a lot of it is about education with heat pumps, and they are very much tech that's like good to go with older properties and newer properties.
Cool. Malcolm, on the chimney, does that mean chimney means you're not eligible?
No, it doesn't. It just I assess a lot of properties, and when there's chimneys that don't add anything functional to the property, it just is a little bit annoying when it might mean you can't do a zero build just because of that chimney. So it can reduce the amount of panels maybe by 2 because of each side and the distancing requirements around them. And sometimes that can be the be all and literally be the difference between a zero build home and not. And so for that reason, I don't like fake chimneys. But it's things like, even like dormers, they do reduce the amount of panels as well. So it's just things that it just means it can reduce the amount of panels, which, but again, there's things coming. So there's now bespoke flashing, so panels can go right up to dormers and Velux windows and things like that. So if they can create one that goes right round a chimney, I'll be a lot happier.
This one was submitted anonymously, but is there a website that lists all the sites that have the Zero Bills builds?
Yes, there is. It's on our website actually, so we can send out the link.
Yep, we can do that. Another one, I live in a retirement flat. Do you work with these kinds of properties to reduce the cost of our communal areas?
So I'm actually working at the moment with a retirement living site that we're looking at for zero bills going forward. So that's not on the communal area though, that is all the individual properties, and then the excess roof space, because there is on this specific one I'm referring to, will be fed through to the communal, so we won't manage that as it were. But it is possible, yeah, absolutely, and definitely something if you can ask your whoever maintains the properties and things like that, or if you can get together as a group to do it, it would definitely help reduce the communal costs. Same with a battery.
Cool. This one's coming from Harrison, and he says, is Zero Bills only compatible with smart chargers rather than cars directly, like Intelligent Go?
Do you want to take it?
Yeah, so it is only compatible with smart chargers, and the reason is with Zero Bills homes we need to generate more than we consume, and EV chargers use about 3,000 kilowatt hours per year. We need to be able to sub-bill for that. So having that level of connectivity so we can not just optimize but also bill at the IO-go rate is important to enable that.
It's also just to make sure the customer gets that experience, because yes, you could have a smart car, which would allow us to do the same thing. But if a developer doesn't communicate that and someone ends up with a non-smart car and a non-smart tariff, then they won't get that good experience. So we want to make sure that a customer is getting that right experience. And obviously when we're working with a lot of developers and we have a lot of customers, it's easier for us to manage and make sure we're helping customers in the right way by having the charger at least as the smart aspect.
Alison says, are you in consultation with listed buildings as most of your retrofit would not be allowed? So, for example, my house is over 500 years old.
Oh, that's a very good question. Do you know?
I think with Zero Bills, there definitely needs to be there needs to be generation on site, so it won't always work. That doesn't mean that some of our other things like the cozy tariff can't work on your property. I think Nigel said he was going to put something in the chat about this, but I think there's been some guidance from either Homes England or, I think Nigel probably has a better answer for this than I do.
I think Nigel's in the call somewhere. Maybe Nigel.
Oh,
you can...
there he is.
Yeah, so Historic England have put out an advice note on historic buildings, and that does talk through issues around listed building consent, conservation areas, what sorts of technologies might be suitable. A lot of historic buildings might be in quite large grounds, and they might potentially have solar that's mounted on the ground. And even if you can't get generation on site, you could look at things like our fan club and see if you can get a local wind turbine. And when that wind turbine's blowing, your electricity bills come down by 20%. If it's blowing hard, sort of 50% reduction. So there is opportunities for that even if you can't do it through Zero Bills. But we do need a lot of generation to get to a Zero Bill home. And I'll put a link in the chat for the Historic England advice note.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nigel.
And also just to know, he's off screen now, so he'll
Back
be less,
into the depths of Zoom.
he'll be less embarrassed. But Nigel is literally the brains behind Zero Bills, which he never tells people, but he really is. So a nice shout out. And then you've all now know where Zero Bills really was created from. It was from Nigel's brain.
Ashley says, are you looking at air-to-air air conditioning as well as air-to-water heat pumps?
Over to you, Will.
Yes, so they are air-to-water heat pumps. So air-to-air, yes. I think actually probably what's most relevant is we are doing this in other countries. So I did a whole bulk of work looking at what Zero Bills might look like in the US, where they have massive heating and cooling systems. So sometimes an air conditioning unit plus a heat pump, sometimes a heat pump that can do, air-to-air heat pumps can do heating and cooling. Obviously, that's another type of energy requirement. But with enough generation, and often in areas where you do get air conditioning units, you have a lot more, it's sunnier. It still works, and there's some little technical things that we need to do. But
you need to
that
do.
I need to do. But yeah, no,
no we.
absolutely. We can sort of make any heating system work in theory, particularly when we have control over the unit.
I've just seen a really funny comment.
The wave.
Yeah. Can you get people behind you to turn around and give you a wave? Claudia and Zola, guys, can you give us a wave? They are real people. Andrew says, as an architect, I'd like to get involved and recommend this to my clients. Is there a cheat sheet of the details that you would be looking to achieve in a language suitable for non-technical explanations?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, drop us an email and we can send you what's called like our partner summary. So it is that kind of just, it's almost like the list that I had up of which specification is required and just a really high level way of explaining how we make Zero Bills work. And then we're always happy to have conversations as well.
Lovely. Next one is, why EPCG cheaper to run than ENF?
I think it's less that they are cheaper to run. It's that in general, those properties that are EPCG in our data set have lower bills. So it's probably definitely a case of correlation versus causation. Hard to say exactly why, to be honest. But that's just what the bills are in EPCG homes with Octopus.
This one is from Steve, and he says, where is the development in small wind turbines for houses? Is this something Octopus is looking at?
Say that again, sorry?
Where is the development in small wind turbines for houses?
It's not something on my radar.
Yeah, it's not something I don't think it's something that we are looking at, but as I touched on with the microgrid stuff, any form of local generation could, in theory, go towards a zero bills mix. There are layers to that. You know, when it's not windy at all, how does a zero bills home function in that case? But I think it's something that if that technology emerged and became cheaper and was feasible, we absolutely would look at it.
So, if we had a site where the homes couldn't get enough solar on the roof, but there was a wind turbine nearby that could help bridge that gap, would that then make it viable?
I think in theory, on a microgrid, on a private wire network, obviously we already have fan club, which is you get lower bills when the wind's blowing locally. Yeah, I mean, these are all things that I think we will look at going forwards, but could in theory work, yes.
Nice.
Sam says, I have a fairly large bungalow with a very large roof. What would be the cost, and is there government grants for homes such as mine?
Is that just for solar, do we think, as opposed to...
Yeah, I'm guessing this one's for solar.
I mean, I will say that a bungalow with a big roof space is always my favourite to look at, because you can get so much solar on, and the generation or the consumption of the property is a lot lower typically than like the volume of the roof space. So I would definitely look into getting solar. In terms of the actual cost, I would recommend doing like a submission on the Octopus Energy website for it to get like a rough quote, because I probably am more familiar with quotes that developers will be giving out as opposed to customers.
Yeah.
But so I would, yeah, if I had a bungalow, I would really like solar. It's a great idea. And you've probably then got space maybe outside your property as well to put a battery on outside if you wanted to go outside. So they're usually quite a good option.
How does the EV billing work? So will the EV be billed separately?
Yeah, it's like a you'd get the zero bill, and then you'd just get an itemized EV bill at the end of your month as well. So every month you still get a zero bill, so you'd get a monthly statement, and then the EV side would just be itemized.
Bridget asks, what does Octopus charge for the technical support for zero bills?
We don't. So for whoever's getting them assessed or anything, so we don't charge anything end to end. There's no payment for Octopus to deliver this. We just really want to be driving this energy revolution and proving to developers, to industry, that a world without energy bills for some homes is very much reality. So why wouldn't we kind of drive it forward and make it as accessible as we can with where we are today?
Awesome. Julian asked, do you use solar panels in place of tiles or on rails, so sitting on the roof tiles?
So in new build, I mean, it is up to the developer. We specify the amount of generation we require. We don't specify which panels, for example, but most will opt for in-roof if they're building from new, because aesthetic, some people think it looks better, but also because then they're saving the cost of the tile. So from a viability perspective, it's better as well. But we can go on roof. So some of the all the retrofits we've done would be on roof as well. So it's really, and actually on roof, you sometimes can get bigger panels. So you can sometimes get more generation on. So sometimes we will look at both if a developer wants us to.
Paul says he lives in a Victorian house with 4 different flats. We are all joint freeholders, so could we, all working together, take advantage of your scheme?
If we opened up the retrofit, like technically yes, you do, because what we sometimes find challenging is obviously the lease, like the roof agreement, in terms of who's responsible for the solar panels. But if you're all looking to do it, then that would be easier, because it would just be as if you're, how your tiles work at the moment. Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest challenge, I'm going to assume if there's 4 flats, it's probably multi-storey beyond 2-storey. And we do struggle to make zero bills work beyond 2 stories. Just the volume of people using the property versus the roof area is a bit lower. But yeah, that's the only caveat. In theory, it would work.
But you'd still be able to benefit from solar and battery storage. So that would be good as well, even if it's not zero bills.
Yeah.
Awesome. Peter says, I already have a solar battery EV charger system installed. Would it be possible to add an Octopus heat pump and move to zero bills?
Again, when we open up our retro... That is a great timing for that. Yes, we do have an octopus mascot with a costume.
I was wondering what you guys are laughing at.
Yeah, there is a lot of octopi or octopuses in this building. I can't remember what I was saying at all now. Can you repeat the question?
Let me find it.
It's going to start dancing in a minute, isn't it?
Who's done that then? I already have a solar battery EV charger system. Would it be possible to add an Octopus heat pump and move to zero bills?
So yes, like in the retrofit ambitions, we would encourage you to submit and let us know, which battery manufacturer you're using, which EV charger manufacturer. So if you've got ones that were part of that specification that I listed out, then yes, potentially for the retrofit side when and if we open it up further.
What's the vote? Was it Phil or was it Greg? She's disappeared now. We've got one that says, can you explain how you managed to achieve the financials to work?
It was Phil.
It was Phil, was it? Is the solar generation for the year enough to cover all consumption, or you get the battery to export during peak hours each? Etc.
So Will was the one that taught me this, so I'll let him explain it.
So in a couple of ways, they still need to generate more than they consume. The non-energy costs associated with energy in the UK are really high, which means that even if you're exporting at peak time and you're importing when the energy cost is low, it still sometimes won't work out as zero. But we also engage with something called the balancing mechanism or flexibility markets, and basically people will pay you to get your battery to charge or discharge when, certainly on a local level, the grid needs it. So yeah, we're sort of buying and selling from the grid when it's cheapest. Well, buying when it's cheapest, selling when it's most expensive. But we're also engaging with these flexibility markets, and then we're able to pass on most of that to the consumer. In fact, nearly all of that to the consumer, which is what makes Zero Bills Homes so powerful. And I think there's pretty much nothing like it out there on the market.
So clever. Jamie says, we have a community-owned 500 kilowatt hydro scheme. Could we partner with you to help the local community get on board with zero bills, perhaps through a microgrid?
I'm not familiar with hydro.
Are we going to call upon Nigel?
Yeah, I think Nigel.
Let's get Nigel involved.
Drop us an email. Fascinated to see if we could make that work. Hydro is a fantastic way of generating clean energy. If you've already paid for it, that's generating electricity in the same way that solar panels do. It's for free when the water's flowing through, we're getting electricity generated. The challenge will be whether we can connect that up to a microgrid and what the existing electrical connection systems are on site. But yeah, drop us an email and let's take a look, see if we make it work.
Nigel, what is a microgrid?
So the official term of a microgrid means it's sort of completely isolated from the grid. The microgrid that we've got at Epping is actually officially a private wire network, so it is connected to the main national grid. So we have a large grid connection and a meter at the boundary of the site, and then all the homes within that site, effectively the energy is shared behind that boundary meter. So any solar energy that's generated can be used by neighbouring properties, can be stored in the battery and then reused by those neighbouring properties, and we only have to pay the full grid charges for the energy that's exported out from that microgrid through that boundary meter. So it's a way of enabling very locally generated energy to be shared behind the network, and it's something that I think that there's been microgrid done before, these private wire networks done before. There's been a few of those done over the last few years. But this is the first one we'll be able to guarantee zero bills at the same time. So that's the sort of added innovation that we're bringing with the Epping scheme, and we are looking at other microgrid schemes to see if we can roll that out.
Cool, thank you, Nigel. Got so many questions coming in. Malcolm says, have you looked at water cooling PV where the excess heat is used to heat the household's water?
That's PV diversion, is it not? Yeah, so we have actually using that solar to charge the battery is the most effective way for us to make this work. The reality is that air source heat pumps are 300% efficient, That's very effective for heating your home, but also heating your hot water. Hannah touched on it earlier, but technologies like wastewater heat recovery, so essentially piping your waste hot water and using that to heat up water that's flowing back into the hot water tank. That's a really great way of improving the efficiency of the home and reducing your hot water consumption. But yeah, we've looked at it, but I think actually the setup that we have at the moment, where we use PV directly to as energy for the home and also to store in the battery and then export, is the most effective way to make zero bills work.
Mm-hmm. Back on to the financial side of things. How does Octopus plan to make its money if homes go zero bills? Will this lead to a ride in bills for those who can't take advantage of it?
No. No, so these as I talked about earlier, all of these savings that we're making by engaging in flexibility markets, by buying and selling at the right time, those are not only good things for the home, so we're not subsidizing these zero bills homes with non-zero bills homes. They are self-sufficient and the financials stack up for each home individually. But also in theory, if we're consistently exporting to the grid when the grid needs it, and we're consistently importing when actually there's too much energy, that can only be a good thing. There's consistently across the UK, we are, local networks are paying for, say, renewables to turn off because there's too much supply, and we're also in other places where there's not enough energy, we're paying for gas power plants to turn on. Those are all things that ultimately the consumer pays for through non-energy costs. And if they start to go away, and that will happen with zero bills homes where we have local storage, that's going to improve bills for everyone, not just the people who have them. And actually, that's the main reason why we wanted to do this in the first place, having this sort of virtual power plant across the UK.
That's super interesting. Hannah, you say lots of solar. Can you give some examples of how many panels and how big a battery are typically required to achieve a zero bills home?
So the battery question's easy. So on probably 98% of the homes these days, it's 13.5 kilowatt hours. Occasionally, like a flat over garage or a bungalow might get away with a 9.5, but majority it is 13.5. In terms of the solar, it really does range quite a lot, obviously, on the size of the property, how many bedrooms. For example, though, like a 2 to 3 bed, typically we would require 8 to 9 panels either side as a minimum now. We've had ones, big properties, like 45 plus panels.
I think we've had more. I think
We've
we've
had
had
more?
56.
56?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So it really does depend. I think a rough rule of thumb, am I right, Will, the floor area divided by 4 or 5?
Yeah.
As a real rough, just as a bit of an idea. But we do assess every property individually based on the heat pump consumption, the hot water consumption, etc. So as a rough rule of thumb, small sort of 16 to 18 panels tends to be a minimum. Yeah.
Okay. Richard says, is there a geographical limit to zero bills? Can it work in Scotland?
So we actually had signed our first deal in Scotland 2 weeks ago. So yes, it can work in Scotland. I want to say it was Dundee off the top of my head. So yes, we absolutely can work in Scotland. We've launched officially in Scotland. We've got a few sites coming forward in Scotland. So yes. It does sometimes mean some more panels, so it can get harder just because of the less generation, but we absolutely can do it. And the way panels are kind of progressing in the market at the moment, they are constantly getting better and better. So even like a couple of years ago, it would have been borderline viable in Scotland. Now it is, because there's better panels, and as they keep coming, it's going to get easier and easier.
Nice. Angeli says, with retrofits, did you say all gas would have to terminate and the house would then only function on electricity?
Yeah, correct. So zero bills requires just electric heating, so we can't accredit zero bills with any gas to the property. Even if the gas boiler's removed and you've got a gas hob, that we can't work with that. We need the whole thing to be electric and off gas.
Cool. Matthew says, do I need to install additional hardware like a home hub for this? Like, how does Octopus control the import and export?
Do you take it?
Yeah, so no is the answer. We connect directly with the kit itself. So we're sort of with the heat pump, we're controlling the scheduling. So you still, from your end, get to control how warm your home is. You say you want it at 21 degrees for this period of time. That's fine. We just basically decide when the heat pump turns on, when it starts to heat water and store it in the hot water tank. And we directly integrate with all of the different pieces of kit. So no extra hardware is required to make Zero Bills work.
Amazing. Back on the EV questions, how will you stop someone just plugging their car into a household socket and charging that way?
That's a very good question. That would take them near the fair usage. So if we see unusual energy consumption, we can get in touch with the customer and check what's going on, because it might be the batteries accidentally been switched off, and obviously we need that on to be eligible for the tariff, so we can get in touch. If there's no unusual, there's no panels, there's no battery gone wrong or anything like that, usually it suggests some unusual activity, but they would then trip the fair usage and start getting an energy bill. And
well, the one thing I'd say is, why would you? Because IOGO rates are so cheap. And if you plug straight into the wall, you get really slow charging. Like, you won't fill up your car overnight. So technically there is nothing other than the fair use cap to stop people doing that. But electricity for charging is so cheap. The majority of people, we sent out an email saying who's got an EV, so that we can start billing that. And everyone was like, oh, I've got one. They're very happy to volunteer that information. Yeah.
Okay. Derek says, have you looked at working with data center developers along with district heating developers to provide a smart micro energy grid system utilizing waste heat from the data centers?
Yes, but do you want to?
We actually have a scheme that we're doing exactly that in, is it South Cambs?
Yes.
Yes, called Power Loop, where we have a large, and we're using that it's not Zero Bills, but it's like a district heating network where we take the waste heat and we're piping it around lots of different homes in South Cambs, and helping reduce their heating and hot water bill, which is really cool. I mean, I want one of these in my back garden, to be honest.
I can just see on the chat there, are solar panel tiles no good? Do you need actual solar panels?
Technically, we could work with solar tiles. It's just the generation we require for Zero Bills is typically higher than what a roof of solar tiles can achieve at the moment. So if they get better, then technically speaking, we could, because we don't have requirements on the panel type. We just need it to generate an amount over the course of a year.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
You look like you have something to say.
Well, no, they're quite expensive, and they're not as efficient. So I think it's a bit, because you do get more coverage with solar tiles, but what you lose out in the efficiency of the solar tiles versus panels themselves, and they're just more expensive to manufacture. It makes more sense to just really max fit a roof.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think as well, quite a lot of people want them for the aesthetics if they don't necessarily like on-roof solar, for example. But especially with new build, or if you're redoing your roof, then if you can do a whole roof of solar panels, then the aesthetic maybe isn't as a...
They're getting prettier.
Yeah, there we go.
Probably got time for one or two more questions before we wrap up the session. Peter says, what happens when the internet connection fails?
We need the internet. We're not going to kick people off immediately. We're not like, oh, your kit doesn't work right, you don't have a Zero Bills anymore. We've got a limit in our T's and C's, I believe.
What, on how long it can be?
Yeah.
But I think I'm interpreting the question as a bit more of like, say there was a power cut.
Right. So if there's a power cut,
I might be wrong.
No, we sort of take that into account. We know that the kit's not going to be functional all the time. And that's not necessarily an issue. We'll also work really hard to help get that back online as soon as possible. That's in our interest, and we want consumers to have a good experience in Zero Bills Homes.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on the webinar and chatting with us about Zero Bills Homes. And thank you everyone also on the call and those who will watch the recording afterwards. Really appreciate you guys logging on. Of course, we really want to hear all your feedback from the session, so feel free to email me. You've all got my email. It's lucy.fowler@octopus Energy. The good, the bad, what you want to see next, what you want to change, we want to hear it all. We're planning to run some more sessions in the new year, but if you send me over what you'd like to hear about, that would be super helpful. And yeah, thanks again everyone for joining the session and for running the session.
Can I just ask
Yeah.
are we able to communicate with everyone afterwards?
Yes,
Because I
I
saw a couple of things in the chat about how they get in touch. So if we're able, we'll send that out really clearly of how you get in touch for different questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.